can um, get the meeting experience. When we send out the meeting notes, I'll also send this recording out to everybody, just so they can have it. So good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for the Farm Stress Advisory meeting for the spring half of the year. I was really excited to put this one together because I realized we haven't had a meeting since before Hurricane Helene, and a lot has happened since we last met in September. So I'm really just excited to touch base with everyone and kind of share what's been happening, in the past couple of months. Before we get too far into it, I would love just to go around the Zoom room and just do a round of introductions and say your name and your organization. There are some newer folks on the advisory board, and so would love just to give everybody the opportunity to meet each other. So I'll start. I'm Michaela Robinette, and I am the Farm Stress Coordinator at the North Carolina Agro-Medicine Institute. And I'll let Andrea go next.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Andrea Sherrill. I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent in Iredell County with Cooperative Extension.
Susan.
Good morning. I'm Susan Jakes. I lead the Program in Community and Rural Development for NC State Extension.
Awesome. Jacob. Oh, you're muted, Jacob.
There we go. Hey, I'm Jacob. I'm the new business coordinator for the Agro-Medicine Institute, and I'll be Michaela's henchman for today.
Monica.
Hi, Monica McConkey. I am an agricultural mental health counselor and consultant. So I work with farmers and ranchers every day, offering counseling and support. I'm based out of northwestern Minnesota, but work nationwide.
Thanks, Monica. Lisa.
I'm Lisa Smith. I'm the County Extension Director in Martin County with North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service.
Autumn.
Hi, everyone. Autumn Connor-Ewan, North Carolina 4-H. I'm a Quality Youth Program Specialist.
Dawn.
Hey, guys. I am Dawn Cavanis. I'm a family doctor from Cabarrus County, Cabarrus Family Medicine Residency Program, and I'm the Agro-Medicine Institute Medical Director that just joined the group. So excited to be here.
And last but not least, Alyssa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Alyssa Spence. I am serving as the interim director for the North Carolina Agro-Medicine Institute. So today I'm really just here to listen and provide any points of information if needed. So pretend I'm not here.
Well, thank y'all for that. Can y'all still see the sharing of the screen? No? Okay, 1 second. Da, da, da. There we go. Technology. So in our time together today, this is I sent out our meeting agenda to your emails. We'll just have a couple of administrative tasks that I'd like to share with you all before going into a review of the work that has been done since this fall. We have a couple of things that I'd like to share with you all about the North Carolina Farm Helpline before we talk about some of our funding situations between now and the end of the year. And then we'll end the conversation with some discussions and Q&As. And so as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to interject me. I love meetings that are more like a conversation, and I'd love to hear y'all's feedback. So either feel free to unmute yourself or put those things in the chat. Alyssa, did you have anything that you wanted to share with this group?
I don't think so. Not unless there's anything specifically that you want me to touch base on.
Okay. As we go through some of the later stuff, if you have anything that you want to add, feel free to.
Perfect.
Awesome. So the first thing that I'd like to share with y'all as the administrative task is this. I'd like to invite you all to fill out our member information form. I know most of you guys in this room have done that already. So when the Farm Stress Advisory Board was created, almost 5 years ago at this point, if not longer, there's been several changes in people's positions and organizations. Also their ability to commit to the advisory board. And so one of my tasks for this year is to kind of organize who is on our advisory board and everybody's commitment. So this QR code links to the Qualtrics form that I think I've sent out a couple of times. It is also in the meeting notes, and then I'll send it out again at the end of this meeting. If you do not fill out this QR code, I probably will be asking, sending out a follow-up email to those individuals that don't, asking if they are still willing to participate in the advisory board, just because we want to make sure that the folks that are participating are willing to give their time and investment. And so, again, no worries if, the commitments for the advisory board are too much. Totally understand, or if your positions have changed, but just would love to get that information from you all. Also updated emails and phone numbers and scopes of work for you all as well. So it shouldn't take too long to fill out. If you have any concerns filling it out, please let me know, but just would like to invite you guys to fill out that. Are there any questions on that form for those of you that have completed it? Okay.
You're going to send it on email, right? So
Yes, ma'am. I'll
I'm
send it
going
out
to do it on
again.
my computer. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Of course. So the next thing that I had for us this morning is to discuss the Farm Stress Strategic Plan. So for those of you that have been a part of the Agri-Medicine Institute for a while, you know that every 5 years we update our strategic plan for the North Carolina Agri-Medicine Institute. And again, in kind of helping with that process, at the institute as a whole, we haven't had a strategic plan for the farm stress program. And a lot of what has happened has been in response to concerns and not necessarily addressing them as they come up. We've been in reactive mode and not necessarily that proactive mode. And so last September, when we met, we discussed creating a strategic plan. We formed a committee group that met to discuss some of those points. And so would love to share it with you all today and get your final feedback on that before kind of making this plan official. So I sent an email of the full document to you all this morning, but here on the screen are the 4 goals and their objectives for the strategic plan. So figured that we could go through them one at a time. And then if you guys have any suggestions of things that we need to shift around or that we could edit, would love to get that information from you all. The idea behind the strategic plan is not to lock us into we have to do X, Y, and Z, because we do know that, as the world is changing and as, we have so many other stressors that our farmers are experiencing, we don't want to lock us into something that is not going to serve them. But it is helpful for us as we apply for new grants. We work through some of the stressors that have come up over the past couple of months and years, that we kind of have a guide for what we're working for. So the first goal is to promote mental health awareness and increase access to support in agricultural communities. We want to do this by increasing awareness of the mental health challenges that affect agriculture. And we also want to encourage help-seeking behaviors by promoting and establishing accessible mental health resources and support networks within those communities. Is there anything that you guys would like to comment on for that goal 1? Are we good with goal 1 staying as is then?
I would say yes.
Okay, perfect. So goal 2 is to expand access to those mental health resources and services. So we want to ensure that those resources and services are available and accessible to those living, working, and serving in agriculture. We want to maintain a statewide network of mental health providers servicing the agricultural community. These are the providers that inform our counseling program at the Agri-Medicine Institute. And we also want to create and distribute farm-focused mental health toolkits, including crisis intervention, stress management, and mental health first aid resources. So again, being able to provide information for you folks that are in extension or working and serving in the agricultural community, that you feel confident in your ability to recognize mental health challenges and provide that support.
So in looking at this one, it makes me want to change goal 1.
Okay.
This is very typical. So you have increase access in goal 1, and then you have expand access in goal 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to be differentiated. So like your access is really covered in goal 2.
Mm-hmm.
So goal 1, maybe you should change the second half of that. You're
Yeah.
trying to promote awareness and increase kind of help seeking behaviors. I mean, that's what you have in your second one. But I mean, access, I like having access covered in a single goal.
Okay.
Because access is not really what you're doing here, but it's more like tapping into the access or, seeking help. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah. So
Like the cleaner they are, the easier it'll be to assess.
yeah, so for sure. So just to make sure I understand, goal 1, rewrite that to just the promoting the awareness, and goal 2, rewrite to increasing access.
So you could keep the second part of goal 1, but instead of having access be what it means, increase, I don't know how you want to say this. Adam could probably tell us, but you could say, increase seeking support or something in the agricultural communities. Or
Got it.
the word access means 2 things. It's like both accessing support and then having access to the support. So I don't know. I would be fun to play with this horse and on my computer and figure out something.
Okay. Sounds good. I can go back in on this and play around with it. Autumn, you said promote mental health awareness and support seeking within agriculture.
I love that. That's perfect. I told you Autumn could do it.
I like that too. There we go. Thanks, Autumn. So for goal 2, aside from rewriting that piece of that, is there anything else that we should move around for goal 2?
One thing that just comes to my mind is thinking about identifying barriers, which kind of goes into access issues, identifying barriers, and addressing those barriers to improve access, whether it's stigma, whether it's insurance coverage, whether it's accessibility of counselors, all the barriers, distance, transportation, broadband, all the things.
Perfect. Okay. That makes sense.
So like address barriers to access, or reduce, provide, I don't know, again, but figure out how to help people remove barriers so they can access the help they need.
I would like to, I agree with both the suggestions. And I was just thinking as you were reading through, I know we were quiet, but it was like more, I think we were all processing the goals and trying to think. But Yeah, I was also thinking about those barriers and like how do we identify those barriers? Luckily, we have this group, us thinking together, and we have farmers represented, but the research is we have some projects going on to kind of identify what farmers and farm workers themselves identify as barriers to care and access, then they could guide us on those. So I don't know if that's the overarching goal or if that's more like the how we're going to address those goals, kind of the strategic plan below those goals.
I kind of wonder if Don and Monica, those things fit into goal one. So goal one, you're having awareness and you're doing support thinking and you're reducing barriers. And number two, so I don't know how to think about this, but I don't know, it could go in goal one too. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, I think goal one kind of feeds into goal two, doesn't it? Like they kind of are intertwined. But yeah, I think like in order to promote mental health awareness and disseminate information to the farming community, we all know because we all do this work, we have to listen first. And so, is there a component of listening or obtaining information from the community that would go under that goal and work hand in hand with us transmitting information and resources back? And I can't find the words right now, but that is my brainstorm that I'm quietly thinking about over here.
You guys are just doing what I've been doing for the past 6 months in my head. Like I'm like in the shower and I'm like, wait, this could be intertwined in here. And so yes, totally. Awesome. Okay.
And I wanted to chime in too, even when barriers are removed and access is there, somehow wording farmers' interest in getting mental health care. And that's like, I think we've removed a lot of barriers and increased access, but it's getting buy-in to seek, and I don't know where to put that, but to seek the help that is available. I don't know
So
how to word that to increase interest or buy-in of getting.
So we had that conversation in the committee meeting, and that's where the help-seeking behaviors line came from. So of course, if there is another way to word that or another way to put that, totally open to it. But yeah, Dawn, decreasing stigma of accessing care, normalizing it, that was also part of where that help-seeking behaviors piece came from for sure. Because y'all are right, like it's not enough to have it available. They have to want to use it, and feel like they have that ability. So
Well, and I think we can get lost in the middle, right? Because there are action steps here that need to happen, obviously, right? We want to reduce stigma. We want to make sure that people know where the services are because they're usually not where the people are. All of that needs to happen. I want a whole logic model in front of me, y'all, real life. Like that's what my nerd brain is doing for those who I am on this planet. But um I think we need to be careful and not get too much language in this front matter, and then we need to unpack it as
for sure. Because I'm fully on the same board as all of y'all. Totally. But like you said, Autumn, it's the making sure that we don't lock ourselves into like we're vague enough that all of the goals are attainable, but also specific enough that they are something that we can guide the work we're doing. Um, so I'd like just for the sake of time to move us on to goal 3 and 4. But of course they're all still going to interchange with each other. So goal 3, I have is strengthen the community and stakeholder engagement. Going back to Agrimedicine Institute exists because of partnerships. And so making sure that we build strong relationships with those key community stakeholders, including farmers, industry organizations, and mental health professionals. And then foster collaborative partnerships to support ongoing research, grant funding, and program delivery related to farm and ranch stress.
And healthcare organizations would kind of fall under mental health professionals.
Yeah. And if I need to reword that to broad healthcare professionals, Dawn, I'm open.
I mean, that's just my personal like internal dialogue, just because I work for a healthcare organization that I would love to see. I feel like I continually see community-based organizations really leading the work, and which I think is wonderful. And also, I think healthcare organizations should be supporting the work and pulling some weight as well. But again, I think that falls under, ag industry and healthcare industry organizations have to work together. So yeah, I think it would fall under those umbrellas.
And I do, like, in that same line of thinking, Dawn, I do think it makes sense to specifically list healthcare as a broader umbrella, just because we know that farmers are more likely to discuss their mental health with a PCP before going straight to a counselor or a therapist. So yeah, I can rewrite that just to be a little bit more explicit. Anything else with that goal 3? So goal 4 is to develop comprehensive training and support programs. Again, this is something that we do already, but having it explicitly listed in the strategic plan was important to me. So equipping agricultural workers, industry leaders, and community members with the tools and training to recognize and respond to mental health challenges, provide ongoing mental health literacy and stress management training to agricultural communities, and expand peer support initiatives to allow trained agricultural members to offer mental health support within their communities.
Would training of healthcare professionals fall under this?
Yes.
Because I think, a lot of times either, primary doctors, therapists don't understand farm culture. And I know that's kind of a heavy lift and it's hard to address, but I always hate it when someone from the ag community seeks care and they're met with someone who's doesn't have any cultural sensitivity to the farming community. And I don't know how to word that. I'm just throwing out an idea there.
No. And I think I had that in an earlier draft on and then didn't, like, I think it made its way out for whatever reason. So for sure can make sure that's more explicit to the work that we do with the medical providers.
And we're kind of, the fact that students that Jessica mentors, the students that I mentor, as well as others, we're kind of doing that work on a scale, but being intentional and counting that work in the strategic plan, I think, is something we're doing anyway that we hope to expand on. So
yeah, for sure. And just like Roberta, doing the trainings, the AHEC trainings, and the presentation that she's been giving, absolutely. Yeah. So Monica, I'm glad that that's the language that you use, because that's also the language that I've been using, and I might have stolen from you, quite honestly, but yeah, that agricultural competency training for sure. So with all 4 laid out, is there, and I'm taking notes, is there anything else that needs to be re-evaluated on this? Or is there anything I'm missing too? Well, with that, if anything does come up throughout the rest of the day, just let me know. You guys have a full copy of the current document with the layout and everything like that as well. So feel free to red marker the heck out of it and send it back to me and we can go from there. But I will hopefully be able to send y'all another copy of it end of next week, beginning of the week after, and then we can finalize it from there. So that was it for our administrative task. So the next piece of our day, our time together, I just want to go into some of the programs that we have done since updates from the previous meeting, things that I know that I said that we were going to be doing by the time we met again. That I just wanted to give you all that update on. So in the last meeting, we discussed that we were updating the North Carolina Farm Stress website. That website has been completed. So NC Farm Stress has a new look, as well as ncagromedicine.org. So if you guys have not checked out our websites recently, both of those got a facelift. If you are looking for something that you know was on the old website that you cannot find on the new website, please let me know. Because, you know, there's always things that might get lost in the sauce, documents, things like that. And so, you know, if you see something that a period is in the wrong place, just let us know. We'll go in and fix it. But yes, so that got finished at the end of last year. Also in the last meeting, I discussed working on some publications, just evaluating the programs that we've done at the Agri-Medicine Institute, and, you know, how they've been used in the North Carolina communities. Because of Hurricane Helene, which I'll talk about in a second, all of that got pushed back. So it is still the plan to have happen this year, and, you know, starting to put some of those groundworks in place, likely will happen over the summer, whenever meeting season has come to a smaller, not as fast as a pace as it has been. So those are the updates from last meeting. So Hurricane Helene, and Alyssa and Dawn, this is where, you know, if you guys have anything you'd like to add, please feel free. So Monica, I know you're in Minnesota, so just as an overview, so Hurricane Helene hit at the end of September, beginning of October, had 37 counties affected, and the most recent data on its impact is $4.9 billion to North Carolina agriculture, and about over 18,000 farms have been affected. A large part of the farms that have been affected were landscaping, nursery, Christmas tree. So those industries that, you know, you don't just get to replant next year. These are things that, you know, take 5 to 10 years to really come back from. And so when Hurricane Helene hit, and us at the Agri-Medicine Institute really, when we were discussing how we wanted to address this, it was with the goal of that immediate relief with long-term resilience, making sure that the immediate needs were met, but not just dropping information and supplies and then walking away from completely, making sure that these communities knew, you know, how they could, you know, come back from this and regenerate stronger. And so some of the things that we did during this time, October to December was pretty much the heaviest lift for us, Hurricane Helene specific. So we coordinated mental and physical health services. So the Institute worked kind of broadly to bring those situations, and I'll let Alyssa and Dawn share more about the physical health if they'd like to. But for the mental health, we worked with our medical providers that were in the affected areas, to make sure that, again, they had that agricultural competency training done. They understood the communities that they would be serving, and then also making sure that those resources were broadly available to those producers in that area. I know at one point we had a mental health professional that was at a distribution site that was supporting agriculture. And she served 2 counties with that. We also, you know, worked to make sure that our counseling program was ready to go. So that way, when folks started to need counseling afterwards, after the immediate impact, they had that support. We also provided mental health training to communities that were serving those folks that were affected, largely through extension. So I taught several different QPR classes and counseling access for lethal means. I offered one mental health first aid course to folks, just again, to make sure that as folks were serving those communities, that they were prepared for whatever that conversation would look like. And then also helped with resource distribution and response coordination. Alongside the mental and physical health services piece, so we recognized that there was a need for crisis debriefing. And so we have been working with Wake Forest University's team of first responder chaplains. So these are individuals that serve as chaplains for the sheriff's departments and for the paramedics. Whenever crises happen, they come in and provide that support. So they have come in and they have done 2 crisis debriefings for us. One of them was at a farm meeting for a lot of farmers that were in that area. And then we also had another one at a resource day for farmers in the western part of state and Haywood County. I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything with that, but we have another Hurricane Helene resource day scheduled for April 24th, and it's going to be in Burnsville. And so working on planning that event. But we'll also be doing not official crisis debriefing, but we will be having somebody on, Roberta Bellamy will be available to provide that support to anybody that needs it after the event. And all of this work could not have happened without our local, state, and national partnerships. We really at the Institute and with the Farms Just programming relied on everybody else's expertise and everybody else's experiences. So we worked really closely with folks that responded to Katrina, and how do we navigate some of these situations. We worked with folks from the University of California that have done work with the Hawaii fires. We were talking to somebody that responded to 9/11 and providing trauma counseling and crisis debriefing. So just making sure that, that all of the pieces that needed to be covered were covered. Dawn and Alyssa, is there anything that I needed to add for Hurricane Helene that you guys would like to share?
Yeah, I can share some about the USDA grant if you want.
Yeah, if you want to do that now or in the funding for sure.
Well, I'll briefly talk about it now. We had secured funds through USDA, which are currently on pause to continue this work. And so I'll talk more about specifics in the funding portion of it. But as far as we know right now, those funds are paused, not canceled. I talked to the program coordinator on Tuesday of this week, and so we're still just awaiting further guidance. But we do plan to continue to work through, Helene-related efforts. We realize that, this is far from over and want to continue to support those farmers and the extension agents and NCDA and everyone that was impacted by that. And so we realize there's still a long way to go, but the funding process of that has been held up. And so if there are any other ways that we can continue to support that in the meantime, we're all ears.
Thanks, Alyssa. I know almost everybody on this call had some overlap with responding to Helene. Is there anything that you guys would like to share about that time and the work that you guys have been doing?
I'll just quickly say I've had there was some, different healthcare systems that were trying to do responses and support for primary care. And, you know, I got an email that was like, hey, we're finding some farmers that need support. And they had identified me as a physician in the system that would know what to do about that. And I loved that I had the crisis line and I was able to say, if your providers that are doing this outreach work, need support, we have a crisis line and they can call that line and we can get resources and get therapy. And I'm always grateful for it. And I've caught it personally many times with patients, but especially in a crisis, but I already have that set up was really nice that I could say to other health professionals, like, if you don't know what to do and you've got a farmer in your office or you're in the community and you have a farmer that needs help, there's a line that you can call. And so I think it's good work that we're doing. And I think it really was helpful for me during this time.
Dawn, you're referring to the farm helpline.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of like a catch-all, because they were like, how can we better support farmers when we find farmers? Like, what do we do? Because apparently they had some interactions with some of the mobile units with farmers and they really weren't sure where to get resources. And I'm like, haha, I know the number. I do not have the answers, but I know who has the answers. So, or can help us find them. So I don't know how much it was actually utilized, but it was really great to have that already in place in the setting of a crisis,
Sure. And I'll share a little bit more about the helpline and how that got used during the hurricane here in a minute. But yeah, thanks, Dawn. Is there anything else anybody would like to share? So moving on from just the hurricane, I'd love to give an update on some of the other initiatives that have been happening with Farm Stress. So at the last meeting, we discussed the new process for taking in counseling requests. So rather than somebody calling the farm helpline and then and that being the only method to receiving counseling services, we have launched a new online request form that producers can fill out, or producers, farm workers, and farm family members can fill out this form and then be emailed a list of providers that they can then go on to make that appointment themselves. Since we launched this form at the end of 2024, we've had 4 requests for services come through this way, which is pretty on par for our state, like how things have happened in the past with just taking requests from the helpline. And again, kind of in that mindset of being proactive rather than reactive, making sure that counseling is offered to people that might not just be in a crisis, but just might, want counseling for their day-to-day concerns. Thanks to Tobacco Trust Fund, we do have funds for this program for 2025. There was more money added to this grant through added for this program through the grant that Alyssa had mentioned. So, of course, the longevity of this opportunity is always going to be a concern unless we can get steady funds for it. But for right now, mental health services are still a go at the Agri-Medicine Institute. If you need, or if you have anybody in your communities that you've noticed could benefit from this. Also with the mental health services, I've been working, again, trying to make sure that our providers understand the communities that they will be serving through this type of program. So at the last meeting, I discussed that I had sat down with everyone one-on-one to discuss their concerns with the program, how their experiences have been so far. Since the end of last year, I've been working with ECU's legal team to develop a formal MOU to help kind of with the comfortability of the providers, making sure that they understand how the Agri-Medicine Institute works, how this program operates, that we can't guarantee a certain number of farmers that they will see in a year. We can't guarantee that funding is always going to be available for it. And making sure that they understand they need to be a licensed provider and that they need to go and either take trainings or have experiences with agriculture that allow them to understand the communities that they're serving. We are in the short rows with this MOU process and getting this finalized. And once that is complete and ready to go, myself and Roberta and a couple other members of the Institute will be holding onboarding sessions with the mental health providers to, again, refamiliarize themselves with the full services at the Agri-Medicine Institute and not necessarily just this part of it. So making sure that they know who we are in the big picture. And then addressing any of those concerns and really making this more of a cohort and less of providers on an island. And so this is going to be happening moving into the rest of the spring into the summer. So hopefully at our next meeting, I'll have more updates on that. With our education, so as a result of Hurricane Helene, most members of the Institute and a lot of our community members are now licensed to teach psychological first aid, listen, protect, and connect module. This course takes about 30 minutes to teach into a community, 45 minutes. And where QPR and counseling access for lethal means are very suicide specific, and mental health first aid is a long and large content that is delivered. Psychological first aid, listen, protect, connect, really just focuses on, okay, you've had a traumatic event happen to you. Here's how we connect you to get the help that you need. And it's less focused on mental health. There is still that component, but it also addresses their physical safety and their physical needs. So like an example of this is, if somebody's vehicle got destroyed in the hurricane, how do we make sure that that person has ample transportation and connecting them to the people in that community? And so we are going to be teaching psychological first aid at that Hurricane Helene event for technical advisors on April 24th in the mountains of North Carolina. Since our last advisory board meeting, 50 individuals have been certified in either CALM, question, persuade, refer, mental health first aid, or listen, protect, and connect. So of course, there are some people that have done more than one of these courses, but across all of those trainings, we've been able to certify 50 individuals. We have not been able to get any bites for folks that want to take assist or safe talk. Kind of again in that same line that we discussed at the September meeting, that those courses are strictly in person and are lengthier than these other trainings and have a little bit less flexibility in how we offer them. But if you are interested in assist or safe talk, myself and Maggie Denning at the Institute are certified to teach those, and we're happy to provide them for your organizations. We have also conducted 13 outreach events focusing on stress and coping skills. So again, going back to our strategic plan, making sure that folks recognize what it looks like when they're stressed, what those challenges look like, how it shows up in their bodies, and then giving them tools that they can use whenever they leave on how to address those things. So the ones that have been the biggest hits for me that I'm teaching them has been the box breathing exercises, so guided breathing. And folks really love mindful eating exercises. I've noticed that that's been very beneficial for folks because it's something that they don't just have to do with the chocolate or the peppermints that I offer in the trainings, but they talk about how they're doing it at lunch after the meeting ends, or that it's something whenever they're snacking on their honey bun in their tractor that they can do with that. And so that's been very beneficial. This image on that I added for this slide was a training that I just did in Edenton, where we talked about how stress impacts decision making, and we talked about different ways that we can make sure that we're planning making our decisions, so that way they're not only done in a crisis. So we talked about SWOT modules, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and I'm forgetting the T in that, but the SWOT analysis and then the decision-making matrix as well. And then again, the Helene, we've had 2 crisis debriefs that have taken place and then 1 planned. With those debrief events, you know, we, in addition to the opportunity to just talk and share, we also are providing them with information on how trauma shows up in our bodies and what short-term and long-term looks like, as well as, again, leaving them with those toolboxes that they may need, or those tools that they may need in their toolbox. And Susan had to jump off, but no worries. So in our research, so again, large part of what we do at the Institute is making sure that our work is shared and is usable and replicable. So we've submitted abstracts for 3 conferences happening later this year related to the work that's been happening at the Institute. So ISASH, the International Society for Agriculture, Safety, and Health, we submitted a panel discussing our response for Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. This will be a joint panel between members of the Agri-Medicine Institute as well as community members that supported us in this work. The Rural Sociological Society, so RSS, also prevented or submitted presentations along that same line, our response to the hurricane, and how other communities that might be facing a natural disaster can utilize those local, state, national partnerships that they have. And then same thing with the Engagement Scholarship Consortium that's happening this fall. And then Alyssa and I just presented at the State of the Sciences meeting in Puerto Rico. And so that was on her work related to logging safety and making sure that folks understand, you know, driving with logging trucks on the road and how to stay safe with that. And then also a workshop that she did with first responders utilizing makeup artists to discuss or to teach how to respond to farming incidents. So Alyssa, do you want to add anything on that?
I think just, even though these were focusing on some, efforts that weren't necessarily directly related to FARSAN, I really like how in this presentation, we link the physical to the mental, and how, you went through one of those trainings and you shared in your portion of the presentation that, you never thought that maybe you would use moulage makeup and things like that in the mental health work that you do, but having that important step in application. So, it reinforced your practice and the way that you teach the different things by making sure that you actually have a portion or a skill in there. And so I think that ties the work that we do at the Institute together in a lot of ways. That you can't separate mental and physical, health and safety. They are all, part of health and wellness. But B, having these types of programs that complement each other and complement the work that we do, and that our staff is constantly staying green and growing as well.
Thanks, Alyssa. This is also my plug for you all as advisory board members. If you are doing any education or research, please share it with us. We love to know. Again, going back to Agri-Medicine Institute is a partnership. And all of our work is truly building upon each other. And so, if you are giving a research presentation or a community presentation, or if you are trying to organize a mental health literacy event for your community, one, I just would love to be your cheerleader for that. But then also, be able to support you in, you know, making sure that we're all sharing the same message, and that everybody has what they need in order to do this type of work and feel like they have, again, that cheerleading section. So, is there any questions or concerns or comments on the work that we've been doing since September? So I want us to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Farm Helpline, and kind of some things that, you know, we've been discussing internally, in the utilization of this. So the North Carolina Farm Helpline, for those of you who don't know, is a part of the Agri-Medicine Institute's Farm Stress Program. It originated out of the regional direction under the Farm Bill to create a crisis and resource line for across the US. And so when funds were given for North Carolina, we decided that we wanted to create a state-specific farm stress line. So this exists as a physical phone that is carried by a member of the agri-medicine staff. We all, before taking the line, made sure that we had training in how to respond to those types of calls, in terms of QPR, question, persuade, refer training, and mental health first aid. We also were very particular about updating our farm stress resource directory, and using that information to inform the calls, requests that we would get into this line. On average, we receive 1 to 2 calls per week on this line. At this point, it is a 24-hour line, 7 days a week. And so calls range in literally one end of the spectrum to the other. Most of you guys have heard me say this before, but the first call that I ever got was a grower in the central part of North Carolina who had blueberry plants. And he had a mold start to form on his blueberries, and he was going to lose his crop and he didn't know what to do. So we connected him to Extension, to a specialist at Extension, and he received the information he needed on there. A few calls later, we had somebody who was in active suicide crisis and needed that level of support. And so you never know what's going to happen whenever that line calls, but it is available. A lot of those calls, topics include mental health support, information on heirs property and succession planning, and access to mediation services in those instances, counseling resources, connecting to their county or state extension specialist. And then something that Alyssa and I find a little bit of humor in, connecting to North Carolina Farm Bureau. So this phone number has been shared by NC Farm Bureau. They help fund the line and fund programs at the Institute. But because it's been shared, if you Google North Carolina Farm Bureau, sometimes the AI overview, if you're looking for the NC Farm Bureau number, it will give you the NC Farm Helpline number. And so we'll have folks calling looking to speak to their insurance agent that are not related to agriculture. And so sometimes that takes place. We did see an increase in calls during Hurricane Helene, people looking for resources, looking for information, but also people from outside of North Carolina or outside the affected area that wanted to support North Carolina farmers. So in those situations, Alyssa and I, who were largely answering the phone during that time, were coordinating hay deliveries and fencing supplies and donations in that regard, as well as people calling saying they wanted to come in and volunteer and wondering where they could do that. So again, referrals for these services are largely handled internally or connected to outside resources. So if they are interested in a program from the Agri-Medicine Institute or our counseling services, we handle that ourselves, or we connect to extension professionals, to loan officers, to, you know, those mediation services, legal advice, things like that. So North Carolina Farm Helpline, again, partly grant funded. We had listed in the federal funds that Alyssa mentioned earlier, shifting the answering of the line from the physical phone at the Agri-Medicine Institute to one of our partners, North Carolina Hope Line. So North Carolina Hope Line is a crisis and resource line serving North Carolina based out of Raleigh. We have done a lot of training with those call volunteers and employees. They have all received some level of agricultural competency training. We actually, Roberta, who couldn't be on the line today, called today. She has a training with them next week with their new batch of volunteers. So this is somebody that we have a very formal or very regular partnership with. And so with those federal funds, we are exploring transferring our calls and us answering the phone to having them answer it first. And then if it's something that, you know, they cannot answer based on the resource directory or their information of agriculture, then they'll send them over to us and we can do a more dedicated case management system with them. Right now, we had budgeted for that to be 24/7. But Alyssa and I have looked at the data and looked at, you know, our typical calls. And most calls do not happen before 8 and after 5. We get a few outliers that happen, you know, 8 p.m. Somebody sitting at the dinner table and realized that they needed to ask a question. But even then, when we answer that line at 8 p.m., they were surprised that somebody answered, and we're just planning to leave a voicemail for somebody to respond to the next day. And so with the advisory board's input, we are proposing shifting the hours from a 24/7 line to a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. line to, one, help the load of our staff, but also to be able to rebudget with those federal funds, you know, expanding our language opportunities, and then maybe even being able to support other programs with that. So fully open to feedback, fully open to your initial thoughts, and I'll open the floor for that now.
Michaela, I think that would work fine if in the call, there's like that immediate, if this is a crisis situation, this is the number that you need to call in the rare event that that's what the call is about.
So we currently have that. So in the event that the line, Alyssa and I can't get to the phone in time, there is a voicemail that says, okay, sorry, we didn't take your call. If this is not a crisis, you can leave a voicemail. If this is a crisis, here are other lines that you can refer to.
I think sounds good.
Yeah, I think that covers a lot of bases.
And Monica, I'm glad that, thank you for sharing that. In Minnesota, our Farm and Rural Helpline is answered by a call center. They then refer out to Department of Ag programs and or an ag counselor. It's a good partnership that works well. Yeah. And that's what we've seen it replicated, you know, in other states. I don't like, this is not a novel, and I didn't feel like it would be, but you know, it is always that, just want to make sure that we do the right thing by our farmers. So it's everybody, there's no immediate concerns moving to 7 to 7. Awesome. And of course, if you get off this call and you're driving home today and you're like, wait a second, that's going to be a problem, please let us know. We would love to have that conversation further. So the next thing that I'd love to discuss with you all is our funding. So again, large part of the programs at North Carolina Agri-Medicine Institute are grant funded. And, you know, staff salaries and all of these things. And so we really, really rely on the support of our partners and of the organizations in North Carolina that believe that farm stress is a priority for them and that, want to support the work that we do. So we just received funds from the Tobacco Trust Fund Commission to help support some of this work in a couple of different ways. So again, continuing the counseling program, but also the release of 2 different mini grants for North Carolina farmers and farm families. So the first one is helping to support these individuals that are looking to access succession planning opportunities and updating their wills and power of attorney documents. So we can reimburse up to $200 per farmer to update these documents. So if you know somebody in your community that is saying that they can't afford to meet with somebody, we are trying to remove that barrier as much as possible. They can contact us for an application. I'm happy to send them out to you all as well. Very, very short application, just sending us that yes, they're a farmer, yes, they had this event happen, and then either sending us the invoice after they have met with them, or a receipt where they paid for it and then would like to be reimbursed. So that's the first mini grant opportunity. The second mini grant opportunity is one that I have a lot of personal connection to, and I was really excited that we were able to do this. So we know that farmers are an aging population that often have caregiving responsibilities for either their spouse or a parent, and that is connected still to the farm. So we have a mini grant opportunity for farm families to receive up to $2,000 per family to help with income loss as a result of medical caregiving. As far as I know, we are the first state to offer this type of program, specifically addressing medical caregivers in the agricultural community. And we've received a lot of requests for applications and we've sent those out, but I haven't received anybody's completed application yet. So if you know of somebody that could benefit from this program, please have them reach out to us. We would love to make sure that they got this funds. And there's no stipulations on what they use that money for or how it's spent. It's truly just to help with income loss as a result of medical bills or having to purchase equipment or taking time off to drive them to their appointments and things like that. So that's my plug for that.
Okay, look,
yes.
real quick. Do you have like a link or something where we can like get that information out?
So I can send the flyer and the applications to everybody when I send the meeting notes. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, really, I was very, very excited for this for a lot of reasons, but I do think we are one of the only states that are addressing caregiving needs, but then are having this type of grant opportunity. So we do have some planned grants that, we are always trying to look for more ways to keep the farm stress program going. Of course, so I'm working on an application right now with NC Humanities, trying to look at non-federal sources of funds because of the freeze. But I do just want to be transparent with you all that, if things don't happen with the federal funds that are frozen, my salary is attached to that one. And so, we are desperately looking for more funds to be able to continue the work that we're doing to keep me in the position that I am and the services that we have still available. So this is my shameless plug. If you guys know of any funds that we should be looking at applying for, we are all ears and would love to explore that with you all. Alyssa and Dawn, did y'all have anything you wanted to add there?
How much do you want me to, sorry, how much do you want me to go into the USDA grant and the Next Tobacco Trust Fund grant?
Whatever you would like to share. I think that would be great.
Okay, so in talking about the USDA grant, it was totaling $292-ish thousand for a year's worth of work. And so, that breaks down into covering a significant portion of Michaela's salary, like she mentioned. It also included updates to our resource directory, which are crucial, that needed to happen yesterday. And then redistributing those in a way that is accessible to, people in communities that were impacted, but also in other parts of the state so that, loan officers, extension agents, NCDA agents, all these people within the agricultural community have access to that both in print, but then the big update to the resource directory was going to be making it digitally available as well. And then also including some of that mental health training that may come in the form of LPC or other types of training, depending on the community's needs. And last but not least, the updates to the helpline, which we're going to include, expanding that to Hopeline, but also expanding the languages that it was offered in. So that money, like I said, is still on pause. And so 75% of Michaela's salary was tied up in it, and then all those other things that I mentioned. We also submitted a North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund application that would revamp our Certified Safe Farm program. And so if you've ever heard of Certified Safe Farm, it looks at really whole farm health, in that there's been two major components of it. So we would go to a farm and we would work with extension agents to do on-farm safety reviews. We don't like to call them audits because that sounds too regulatory. So we do these safety reviews. We look at all the equipment, all the structures on the farm. They're very, very thorough. And so we make suggestions. The farms, decide what they're willing to follow through. There is reimbursement monies provided to make those improvements. But then they also would participate in health education and do healthcare screenings with our nursing team. So since that last iteration, which was sometime around I want to say like 2011, and that was completed over 3 years. So around 2015 is the last time we got money to work that program. We've had a lot of agents either move out of extension, retire, move on to other job opportunities, but we've also, seen a much bigger focus on mental health. And so what this update would provide is including mental health services as a part of that program. So whether it be literacy education or training for people in the ag community, but a portion of Michaela's salary would also be on that. And that would be a 2-year grant cycle. Any questions on any of those? Cool.
Thank you, Alyssa, for that update. I really appreciate that. So yes, again, we are fully open and available if you guys are applying for any grants and you want the Agri-Medicine Institute to help support those things. But also, if you guys have any information on other opportunities that we should be exploring outside of the normal ones that we consider, would love to have that conversation with you all. So before we wrap up, I would love just to open up the floor again. I do this in most every farm advisory meeting, but just want to make sure that we know what resources are missing in your community that need to be available and how can we support and address those challenges. So I'll open up the floor for that conversation.
I can add two things. As far as missing, I don't want to say it's missing. I mean, I think the work that's been done already towards each of the goals is been really great to see its effectiveness and how it's impacted individuals. I think it's just there's so much need, and it feels like we just need more of those things and more of those interventions. And I don't know how to do more, but I think that certainly, I don't think it's missing. I just think it's how do we expand, the work that's being done in a way that we can reach more farmers, I think is always the question that we're asking. And then, of course, my perspective is always about primary care. And I still worry, and I don't have an answer for this, that when, we have our awesome team, community collaborators out on farms, and really this individual needs primary care, how do we better access and integrate patients with primary care doctors that can care about them and help work along those in agricultural support agencies to give the care that's needed, and maybe figuring out places where that's done well and trying to expand that. But I always do worry that we're still missing that piece of primary care access to rural spaces. And we're not the only state that struggles with that, of course, but no answers, just thoughts.
Dawn, maybe something to think about more is, are there spaces that we're not currently in that could help, expand that capacity and build those bridges? We participate in like the Rural Health Symposium and things like that, but are there other spaces that we would be able to interface more with primary care doctors that we're not currently participating in? And that's not, an answer that I would expect right now, but how do we have more of those conversations?
Monica, I'm really curious from your perspective, being out of state, and one of the large reasons why I was really excited that you agreed to join the advisory board, is that you can provide a larger perspective for us. Is there things happening, outside of North Carolina that you're seeing being done really well, that maybe we're not hitting the mark as well on, or that we should look at replicating?
Well, first of all, just listening to all this, you guys are doing some really good work. I mean, I think you're right, Michaela, the funding for the medical hardship piece, never have heard of that before. I jotted it down because that is so real as our farmers are aging and there's either that maybe that hesitation for them to leave the farm, or there's not a next generation or what have you, and they're needing care and support. So that's really awesome. I do a lot of work in both direct service work in both North Dakota and Minnesota. And I would say, accessibility issues in these rural communities across the board are really difficult. We have some local uh, clinic type settings that are utilizing telehealth in order to especially access specialty care, which I'm guessing you guys are doing the same thing, in throughout rural North Carolina. Um, Gosh, I had a thought right when I started talking, and once I lost it. I might have to be silent for a little bit and try to regain that back. Um, Shoot. It'll come back to me. Give me a few moments.
Yeah. Autumn and Lisa and Andrea, is there anything, within your roles and extension that we can do to better support you, and your staff?
I feel like we've been supported well with the Martin County farmers. Our public health system has done a very good job of utilizing your programming.
Yeah, Monica.
I'm gonna let Monica talk.
I remembered. So one really creative thing that happened in North Dakota is, and I don't know what North Dakota or North Carolina suicide prevention looks like, probably coming out of like the State Department of Health and Human Services. But North Dakota identified top risk demographics within the state for death by suicide, farmers and ranchers being one. So they put out an RFP to people that would submit a proposal on strategies or initiatives to really promote building protective factors in order to reduce suicide risk among those at-risk communities. And I wasn't going to do anything because I was super busy, but they reached out and said, we'd love to see a proposal from you for farmers and ranchers. So, and, we're working with not a lot of evidence-based stuff in this realm, right? So I submitted a proposal for, it was all about building protective factors in terms of reducing isolation and improving conflict management, improving communication, improving problem solving. And so we did 5 farm couple retreats across the state. And I developed some radio spots to go out on the egg radio broadcasting system across North Dakota, just really hopeful messaging. And then the third kind of part of this proposal was to be present in 10 different producer meetings to do a lot of what you're doing, speaking on stress, things like that. And they accepted it. So all of that was funded through the State Department of Health and Human Services suicide prevention kind of funding stream. And I just thought that was such a unique way to address support for egg producers. We don't, it typically doesn't get that specific when we're looking at state departments of health and human services through the realm of suicide. And it wasn't just going out and teaching QPR and Safe Talk and that. It was really looking at how do we get to producers to build protective factors. So I don't know, just throwing that out there, but that was unique.
That the date nights, the farmer date nights?
We've done that in Minnesota. This was 24-hour retreats.
Oh, cool.
So we covered things like, farm stress, but problem solving, communication, we hit really hard, goal setting, we hit really hard. But the coolest thing for me facilitating those retreats was you'd have couples from all age range at the same retreat, and we capped it at 10 couples. But the interaction, like young couples seeking insight from older couples and older couples just reflecting on, I can now better understand my kids, my incoming generation, because I'm talking with these couples at the retreat, and relationships were established. They shared contact information. So it was just the coolest thing to just kind of see naturally happen through these retreats. But I just thought the North Dakota's funding mechanism to make that happen was really unique.
That is cool. I'm interested in that. How did you get folks to agree to go to an overnight thing?
Well, one thing is North Dakota has very few dairies, and we do it just like I started at them at like 1:00 in the afternoon on a Friday, and they went to like 1:30 on a Saturday. So, and that was originally established in Minnesota, where there are more dairy families, so they'd only have to miss 2 milkings. So they only had to find people to cover 2 milkings. But I kept the same strategy in North Dakota, and not easy. I mean, some of them we did not fill. Some of them, 10 couples, did not come out, but we held them all off season, in the winter, where these were primarily crop farmers, ranchers, so calving hadn't started yet. So a little bit easier. We really crammed them into like December, January, February. And that was our best bet because I knew I wouldn't get them outside of that time frame. And we kind of made, I mean, it was no cost to them. It was a night off the farm in a hotel, free meals. So that was kind of the selling point. It's like a little getaway for the two of you.
So the other one program that I've seen you share that I'm just really curious with, and I wonder how it would work in North Carolina, the date nights. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, we did date nights because in northern Minnesota, oh, I don't know what it is, but people do not come out for anything. Uh, with central and southern Minnesota, we can get couples to come out. Northern Minnesota, it's like crickets, and that's where I'm from, and I don't know. So we pivoted to try more of a date night, farmer night out, farm couple night out, kind of an option. And we really just reduced the amount of information we shared at a retreat, kind of picked out what we wanted to hit on and put that into date night. So it's typically like 3 hours long. They come out, there's a program. We do the 5 love languages with them. We do a communication styles assessment, talk a little bit about farm stress. They get a nice meal. We play a game, the newlywed game, actually, which is a big hit. And yeah, just kind of make it more fun and light. And that's been for those areas we don't get people committing to an overnight, that's been a good option.
Yeah, I've seen you share that a couple of times. And as far as, and again, I truly couldn't have missed this. I haven't seen anything like that replicated in North Carolina, where like in getting, farmers in a farm bureau meeting or like a farm bureau building or an extension building to have just like a couples night out. That is not something that they have to plan on their own.
Yeah.
And so I've been really impressed with seeing that. And
yeah, happy to send you like the agenda, the things we use.
awesome.
There was a guy in Iowa that had been doing them, I think, through like a farm bureau or farmers union that initially got us going in Minnesota with kind of his template, and then we changed it to what we wanted it to be. And it's just kind of grown from there. So happy to share all that info if you'd like it.
That'd be great. And Alyssa, you just put in the chat, you did a Valentine's farm theater. So cool. I said, it's one of those, I love seeing things that are a little bit different and anytime. Because I don't know, maybe this is a personal opinion. I feel like farmers do the same meetings at the same time year after year. And so anytime we can shake things up a little bit for them, it's exciting. Autumn, were you going to say something too before we flipped over?
Well, you asked,
Yeah.
and I'm playing catch up a little bit, but as the person who sits with 4-H on this, I'm thinking about like that intersection with youth and families and how, I don't know, how we can do something that is, and I heard the intergenerational piece that Monica was talking about, right? And so a lot of the struggle, at least for that I know of for farmers is getting that next generation involved in farming and looking towards the future. And I've done a lot in the space of ag STEM, like attracting youth into that space and how do we do that work, which sounds a lot more exciting, right, than farming traditionally. But farming traditionally doesn't look like farming traditionally. And so I don't know. I'm playing with that in my head because we know that mental health is holistic, right? Your kids have to be healthy. Your spouse has to be healthy. Like you need all the parts healthy for you to be healthy. And so I don't know. I'm just starting to like think through what that could look like. And it will be really helpful when they unpause all of the things in the world. Because I also have similar things happening in my space, Michaela. So all the thoughts around all of that, because it's a mess right now. But yeah, so I don't have anything concrete, just like trying to start noodling a little bit around some of that.
Yeah, Autumn, that's really, and that's a piece too that I don't want us to forget about the holisticness of it. Andrea and I just did, and you might have been there, Autumn, just did a workshop for the 4-H volunteers in North Carolina at their conference. And
I was teaching trauma informed stuff.
and I thought the reception was very good with that group. And I've had a couple of requests from folks that Andrea and I had in the workshops about if we could come into their 4-H chapters and do similar work with the students. And so, you know, it's definitely the holisticness of it, and you know, kind of going back to Dawn, make sure that we don't forget the healthcare producers. Like, there's so many people that need to be a focus. I think my challenge has been, how do I make sure that ample attention has been given to each part of the circle, without overcommitting ourselves or stretching ourselves where we can't serve anybody. And so I'm always open to ideas on how we can balance that, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's where those collaborations and partnerships come in so strongly, is that we have to, like, I'm looking at Andre sitting in front of me, my FCS folks in the room, like, that bridge is important, that reaching across and working together and really eliminating some silos that still exist in our world, because they're still there as much as we want them to not be. And so just, yeah, I'll be noodling for a little while and thinking on that. I'll let you know if I come up with anything.
Well, y'all know I have, anytime you want to set up a call, just, you guys all have my cell number, and I have it at the end of the presentation as well. Feel free just to shoot me a call or a text and say, hey, I was driving home and I thought about this, because I'd love to keep this dialogue going. Is there anything else that we wanted to share before we wrapped up? Okay. So just wanted to share with you the next steps happening after this meeting. So Jacob and I will work together to finalize the meeting notes. And so I will send that, the recordings, as well as the flyers for those new programs and the counseling request link, and that information. So that way you guys just have all of the resources available to you all. So hopefully, if not end of day today, it'll be early next week that all of that information gets sent out to you all. I will also work on the edits for the strategic plan and then send you guys that information in that email as well. Also, again, just another plug for that informational Qualtrics form. If you have any issues with it, please let me know. Just would love to use that as our new listserv emails. So want to make sure that if you want to continue to be part of the advisory board, I'd love to have you. Just want to make sure that I have the best information to contact you all with. And then looking at our next meeting, likely being fall of 2025, but we will reevaluate closer to, and maybe I should ask you all this too. Do y'all feel that these advisory board meetings happen best on a yearly basis or a biannually basis? I'm happy to schedule another meeting for fall 2025, but I know that you guys are all busy with your own commitments. And if we need to keep these just once a year, I'm open to that as well. I go back and forth in my head on what's best. No need to have an answer right now. We can reevaluate later in the year. I see Dawn open to either. Yep. So we can reevaluate in the fall if we want to continue doing these twice a year or once a year. But with that, I will let you guys go early. Thank you guys for carving out 2 hours of your day to talk about farm stress in North Carolina. This is, again, my contact information. I'll put my cell phone number in the chat too and have that available for you all. But, you know, again, just really appreciate all of the work that you guys do in your spaces to promote this work and to support us, and happy to return the favor at any point.
Thank you, Michaela, and thanks for all y'all are doing your way there in the Greenville.
Thanks, Andrea. Have a good rest of your day. Stop sharing. All right, I'm going to end the Zoom, guys.